Yes, it is Business Morning, but it's coming from our NGX studio right here in Lagos. I'm Amy John McQuarrie, and yes, we're about to do business. We start from the global space, as we would always do, and we can tell you from the oil space that Brent has lost some cents in the last couple of hours. It eased on Thursday after surging the day before, as worries about the impact of intensifying tariff wars on global economic growth and energy demand outweighs the positive sentiment from a larger than expected draw in the United States gasoline stocks. Brent lost 7 cents, that's about 0.1%, to $70.88 a barrel. At least it's better than what we had yesterday, Wednesday, when it was below 70. So WTI shed also 11 cents, that's about 0.2, to $67.57 a barrel. Both benchmarks rallied about 2% on Wednesday as U.S. government data showed tighter than expected oil and fuel inventories. U.S. crude stockpiles rose 1.4 million barrels in the latest week. Energy Information Administration data indicated this, which was less than the 2 million barrels rise that forecasters had expected. U.S. gasoline inventories fell by 5.7 million barrels, more than 1.9 million barrels draw expected. And the EIA data shows that crude inventories in the United States Strategic Petroleum Reserve rose to their highest level since 2022. Now we come home to Nigeria. Now the NESG IBTC Business Confidence Monitor is reporting sustained improvement in performance for the second consecutive month this year, 2025. The survey shows performance index for February at plus 11.50, reflecting a rise in business activities and moderate improvement compared to plus 5.69 in January. According to the report, businesses face growth challenges in the area of FX constraints and inadequate power supply. But in spite of this, there was sustained positive momentum. However, subsectoral analysis reveals a generally weak performance as trade recorded plus 21.48, manufacturing 1.21, services 7.15, and agriculture 2.69. So though the numbers are low, but most sectors experienced relative improvement when compared to the previous month, that's January, except for agriculture, which recorded a downward trend for the month of February. Furthermore, report captures a slight ease in the business environment, although higher exchange rate remains a key driver of operational costs and consumer prices. Now let's come to Lagos. That state, that's Nigeria's commercial capital, has been ranked Africa's second largest city in economy after Egypt. Egypt's commercial capital, Cairo. This was made known during the official launch of the Lagos Economic Development Update 2025. According to the report, the subnational ranks as the continent's second largest city economy in purchasing power parity with gross domestic product of $259.75 billion. That was the number for 2023. Meanwhile, the state government has set ambitious projects for the 2025 fiscal year, which is hinged on a higher GDP forecast, strong sectoral growth, increased revenue targets, and lower inflation outlook. And now, as part of efforts to enhance air connectivity and strengthen bilateral air services agreement, Nigeria and Jamaica are considering the establishment of a direct flight route. This is contained in a statement by the Special Advisor on Media and Communications to the Ministry of Aviation and Aerospace Development, Mr. Tunde Moshood. The development follows the outcome of the meeting between the Aviation Minister, Mr. Festus Keyamo, and the Jamaican Ambassador to Nigeria, Lincoln Downer, and his consular, Andrew Herbert, in Abuja. Mr. Downer mentioned that Jamaica currently lacks a national carrier and proposed combining the BASA with Trinidad and Tobago to address the air service gap, emphasizing the growing demand for travel from Nigeria to Jamaica. Well, declining federal allocations due to debt servicing and numerous capital and infrastructural projects have forced Plateau State in Nigeria to focus on internally generated revenue and tax reforms that will attract more revenue to the state's purse. Executive Chairman of the Plateau State Internal Revenue Service, Wires Jimpam, during a media interactive session in Jos, stated that the government has set a revenue target of 52 billion naira for the year 2025 as against 31 billion that was realized in 2024. And this comes as the Revenue Service says it is enhancing digital tax payment systems and automating revenue collection to prevent fund mismanagement towards increasing internally generated revenue in the state.
There's hope that we need to start 2025 on a tall order because even the state government has given us a total revenue target of 52 billion in 2025. But we started 2025 in a strong footing. As of January, we collected about 3.3 billion, which is one of not even the highest that we ever collected in any given month. But I think compared to last year by January we did about 1.6, but this year January we will jack it to about 3.3 billion. That shows significant improvement in revenue generation.
All right, so now let's head to the commodity space. Ed, we did tell you about oil. We saw the improvement there. It's now at 70, even though for Nigeria, of course, we expected more. But let's find out the realities of it. And right here in the studio, we have research manager with financial derivatives company, Teva Kumeka. Teva, good to see you in person. On Tuesday, we had to do a virtual conversation, but at least we can't do physical now. Yeah. Good to have you. So what's going on with oil? We've seen on Tuesday, we talked about how it's below Nigeria's target, but at least today we see it has gotten to 70. We don't know how it's going to end the day, but what can we expect in the next few days, and how can we expect that to seep into our economy as Nigerians?
Okay, thank you so much. Good morning, and it's good to be here in live. Yeah, the oil market is a very dynamic market, and there are fundamentals that affect that market. We have demand and supply dynamics. We have market sentiments and other geopolitical risk that affects the oil market. What we are seeing is mostly market sentimentals, which is in terms of hedgers and speculators. So oil futures contract, which businesses and investors go into with oil producers to speculate or hedge against whether prices are going higher, if they speculate prices are going higher or in a particular direction. So, for example, for refineries and airlines that hedge against increasing oil prices to lock in lower prices if they expect prices are going to increase. Then for investors, if they expect prices to be higher, they lock in so that they will take advantage of higher prices in the future. So we are seeing that volatility in the market because there is pressure and market speculation. What that means is that, like you said, there's little improvement from Tuesday, but we are moving closer to our benchmark for the budget 2025. The implication of having a lower oil price compared to the benchmark is lower foreign
just like we discussed on Tuesday. The revenue is threatened, the plans of the government, and that might result to more borrowing and all.
If you look at another angle, the oil production also dropped. It dropped by around 4%.
Yes, we saw that yesterday.
So the drop in oil production and not meeting up with the benchmark for the oil price is double
whammy, they say. So that would mean more borrowing for the government if we should be able to meet up with the plans for the budget.
Production and oil price keep going down or stays below our benchmark, then it means more borrowing. And more borrowing means more pressure on the economy. Inflation, we are facing inflationary pressures, so that also has an effect on inflation. So inflation will keep going up. And then there's effect on investment, because once the government keep borrowing, what happens is what we call crowding out effect. It's going to crowd out private investors who drive the economy. If you look at
but yields will go up because right now yields are trending down. That'll be good news for some fixed income investors.
Yeah, if you recall last month on 19th of February, the MPC held a meeting and all the rates remained constant. So markets are predicting that it's likely there's going to be a cut in the next meeting. So what we are seeing, the drop in rates, is a signal that it's likely going to be a cut. But if inflation turns
the pressures,
then we are going to see a reversal. But the implication of this is that they are going to too much burden on the government and the economy. Budget deficits, keeping up with expenditure and government promises is going to be unlikely.
So now that I know they say talks are on, we don't know if the crude for Naira policy, will be, NNPC say it will expire by the end of this month. We don't know what's going to happen by the end of this month. Where does that come into the picture? What does it bring to the table? The issue around, the renewal or not of the crude for Naira.
That's a very interesting conversation. Yes, like you said, there is already renegotiation between the Dangote group and the NNPC. There is no debate about it. It's for the interest of the country for that contract to be renewed. If that is not renewed, the implication is that Dangote is going to be importing crude to produce petroleum products.
But Dangote imports crude even as we speak.
Yes, the refinery operates on two types of crude. So we have the light and the heavy crude. So it's a blend. Dangote, we know, Dangote is a dominant producer of petroleum products in Nigeria. The refinery is about 650,000 barrels. That's the capacity. Dangote is a price leader. And Dangote has invested a huge sum of money in that project, about $20 billion. If you look at the fixed capital formation of Nigeria, currently it's about $82 billion. If you compare that to what Dangote invests, that's about 24%. So Dangote has invested a lot in that refinery, and the benefits is more than not renewed. They have to renew for the benefit of the country. What we want to see is that we want to see equal petroleum product pricing in the country, whether you are in the southwest, you are in the northeast, or wherever you are in the country. We want to see equal.
Yeah, but that's for Dangote because it's a deregulated market. So, others can have other sources and then they might have different prices. Isn't that allowed?
Yeah, as long as the market is deregulated,
yes,
anybody can fix their product price based on the cost input. So you produce, then you fix your price based on the cost input. But the good thing is that when the market, there's healthy competition, then you watch what your neighbor does such that you will not lose your customers. So what we want to see is that a market that is free and fair, where everybody operates, nobody take advantage of the market, nobody has dominance of the market. But if you operate lower than your competitors, you bring down the price, and those competitors also have to find a way to also bring down their prices. So once we have equal pricing for petroleum products in the country, then we'll see cost of moving goods from maybe the north to the south will reduce. So once prices comes down, inflation will begin to come down.
But the thing with Nigeria is they say prices never come down, because even though we've seen reduced prices at the pump since December, has it reflected in the transport fare and all?
No,
because that's where it's supposed to appear directly.
It doesn't move one-on-one, but it could have been worse if the prices are elevated. They have gone higher. And the issue here is the global oil price also affects what the domestic price is. As the price comes down, the domestic price also comes down. As it goes up, it also goes up. The other thing we want to see is that as we move forward, Dangote is going to be earning forex by exporting this refined product to other neighboring countries and other countries. So what does that mean? It means that if we are earning enough forex, then Nigeria will become self-sufficient in terms of earning, not depending on only exporting crude, but refining, exporting refined products. And the employment that is being exported to where we export crude will now be employed in the country. So we'll take care of unemployment, we'll improve welfare of the citizen, improve purchasing power, then demand for product will increase, then productivity, as productivity increases, the price of these commodities will come down, then we'll see inflation begin to go down.
Yeah, well, we do hope that by the end of this month, we'll certainly get some good news about the crude for Naira, perhaps an extension or renewal of the policy, as NNPC had informed us that it expires this month. Thank you so much. Thank you so much for your time, Tebe Kumeka, Research Manager with Financial Derivatives Company.
Thank you very much for having me.
All right, now let's talk about trade, and it's not happening in Nigeria, but it does concern Nigeria. Industry leaders, experts, and key stakeholders from across a trade ecosystem are convening in Cape Town, South Africa for the Africa Trade Conference. Organizers say the gathering aims to bring together influential voices to shape the future of trade on the continent, drive innovation, sustainability, strategic partnerships, and inclusive growth. This year's conference is themed Empowering Africa Through Trade, Innovation, and Sustainable Growth. South Africa correspondent Innocent Semosa is covering that event and sent in this report.
The conversation here focuses on innovative trade solutions, sustainable practices, and strategies to expand markets. Stakeholders across Africa's trade ecosystem acknowledge the numerous challenges facing intra-African trade, including inadequate trade policies, logistical bottlenecks, and protectionism, among others. During the conference, Mark Obion, Counselor for Economic Research and Statistics at the World Trade Organization, shared his insights on unlocking Africa's trade potential in the global market. As discussions around the Africa Continental Free Trade Area gain momentum, the key question remains: how crucial are partnerships and collaboration in unlocking Africa's trade potential to ensure inclusive growth that benefits all sectors of society?
I think it's at the heart of what we are talking about, because for trade to get the level we are looking at, there has to there's regulation involved. And therefore, for you to make that happen, you need to partner government, you need to partner DFIs, you need to partner logistics company, so all of the value chain, that relates to trade. So very, very, and that's why if you look at this conference today, we brought people who do logistics, private sector, DFI, so that we can have a conversation as to how, we can partner.
As private sector, what type of policy initiatives do you expect from government in making sure that we indeed unlock trade in the continent?
All right, so if you look at the challenges that we face with trade in Africa, it's a couple of things. The first is around the lack of productive capacity in Africa. So what we do today is that we take cocoa, we take cobalt, we send them abroad, and we get refined goods. We don't have productive capacity. How do we create an environment and financing to be able to actually take cocoa and make chocolate in Ghana or Cote d'Ivoire?
The executive head of strategy and investment, Access Bank South Africa, Yinka Yomi Tokosi, emphasized that Africa must drive discussions on policies and initiatives that empower women and youth in Africa's trade sector.
Okay, so that's a very good question. So obviously, as you know, Africa is a population of about 1.5 billion people. However, we only represent 3% of global trade. So that means that there's a lot of opportunity for us to unlock. And a significant population of the continent is actually young people. So ideally for us to grow that is how do we ensure that we empower young people, and trade is a way.
Dominique Fojo from Anglo Ashanti echoes similar sentiments, highlighting the importance of inclusive trade policies. As stakeholders continue these critical discussions, the challenge remains in translating dialogues into action, ensuring that trade growth is inclusive, resilient, and benefits all Africans. From Cape Town, South Africa, Innocent Semosa, Channels Television News.
Back, it's still Business Morning on Channels Television. Now, last year, 2024, the federal government had said that they have a target, of the number of meters that they want to acquire. They said they were set to acquire about 3.5 million power meters by the end of the year. And this, of course, they say is to meet up with that need of over 7 million households who don't have meters. I wonder if they met up with that. Let's meet a meter manufacturer here in Nigeria, Engineer Durosola Omonibegun. He is the Chief Executive Officer of Inreli Limited. He's also the acting president of the Association of Meter Manufacturers of Nigeria. Engineer, good morning, and thank you for joining us this morning.
Thank you, Madam Ini, and thank you for having me here today.
Good to have you.
It's a pleasure to be here again.
This meter issue, it's been on for years. We created maps. We thought maps would deal with the problem. But last year, there was a target of 3.5 million meters. I wonder if that target was met. I know you're not the federal government, but at least you're a player in the industry.
And a very concerned player at that. Okay, so last year the target was not met. However, there's a lot that's been put in place, and it's ongoing. We believe this year there will be a whole load of progress in achieving that target and bringing on board other new initiatives from the current administration. So it is envisaged that this year we should meet that target of 3.5 million. And we're in active engagement with government to assure them that cooperating with the meter manufacturers, domestic meter manufacturers, we can achieve this target and make it a recurring thing for the next 3-4 years to ensure that the vision of President Bola Ahmed Tinubu is achieved.
But what's the difference between last year and this year? What is it that wasn't done last year that makes you think that because it's done this year, then we will be able to meet up that target?
A very good question. Thank you. You might have seen or heard about some very serious advocacy by the local meter manufacturers under the umbrella of an association called Association of Meter Manufacturers of Nigeria. This was intense in 2023 and a bit last year. The fact is that last year we were expecting that the World Bank project under the DISREP program would deliver at least 2 million meters. And these meters were issued out under international competitive bidding to international companies. For some reason, I think the criteria, we believe the evaluation criteria by the World Bank that is funding that particular program, that evaluation criteria had issues. And also, we believe that by giving it out to international companies who do not know the terrain very well, these are factors that contributed to that program not realizing its objective. There have been a few shall I say, amendments to the execution of the program, which we think will make it achieve its objective. But however, we have demonstrated, the meter manufacturers of Nigeria, we have demonstrated that if this program had been given to Nigerians, we would have delivered all of these meters. For the simple reason that we know the terrain, for the simple reason that the target that or what has been achieved so far in metering Nigerians have been done, funded by the local meter manufacturers under the CAPMI program and the MAP program, which is the Meter Asset Program, Asset Provider Program, through which most people are buying their meters even right now. However, the World Bank project, I think we see that some of the metrics and pricing strategies just did not reconcile and merge to make the objective realized. So we have been invited to the table, and we are actively discussing with a key initiative of the current administration under the presidential metering initiative, and they are being very realistic this time about the execution, the processes, the pricing, and how to roll out these meters. So we know that the PMI, that's the Presidential Metering Initiative, will be more successful, and we believe that given that they are now more ready than ever to start this year, we believe that there will be significant rollout of meters, especially because also the key members of AMON already even have stocks of meters in Nigeria, which the foreign companies that were given these contracts under the World Bank program do not have. So we are ready to roll out. And just last week we had a meeting with the PMI, and most of the issues are being resolved to make sure that when the local manufacturers hit the ground, we will hit the ground running, we will achieve what needs to be done. So this year is very hopeful.
Will this erase the, because I know for a long time there was the conversation of the local manufacturers not being patronized, you know, which I think implies from what you said that the local manufacturers have some meters already down, which have not been used. So do you see this erasing that challenge?
Oh, absolutely. It will erase it. But we are also discussing with the government to say that not only erase it, we want a situation, we can achieve a situation where our manufacturers will be responsible for closing the entire 7 million meter gap that has been currently assessed by the regulator. If you go to some of the consultants, they will tell you the meter gap is over 30 million. For instance, if you check the PwC website and you see what they claim it is over 30 million meters. Yes, but so one of the key things our advocacy achieved, and I must say that advocacy involved a bit of, you know, trade-off and some strong arm tactics on both sides. But I must commend the president. The President Bola Ahmed Tinubu invited us to the table. We came to the table, and they saw that the local meter manufacturers have capacity. They're still arguing that capacity, but we are ready to demonstrate that employ us and we will do a good job. And I'm happy to say—
Good job in quality also, because that also used to be on the table.
Absolutely,
the quality
absolutely.
Of the meters manufactured in the country.
Thank you for that, bringing up that point. Like I said, meter asset providers, local providers have provided majority, 90% of the 6 million meters that are in Nigeria. Do you have a problem with the quality? Failure rate is very low. The meters are accurate, and they undergo significant and substantial testing from the Nigeria Electricity Management Services Agency. So before you can put a meter on in the Nigerian market, the engineers at NEMSA will first type test that particular model. And now when you type test, they give you a certificate. Some meters don't pass it, they don't come into the system. When they give you that certificate, then you can bring in bulk meters. When you bring in the bulk meters, they also do a statistical sampling and routine test on every consignment that you bring in. So you can be assured that what we bring in will be even better than what the foreign companies bring in. Reason? Because I'm not leaving Nigeria. When I bring in something, I'm going to stand by it. I have to, because you can call me. When XYZ brings in, from China brings in his company, his meters, He's going to deliver the meters, install it, and thereafter, he's gone. So if you look at that, I think it's a safer bet to use the Nigerians, because when you use us, we also add so much more value to the economy. Let me stop at that, but I would like to go into what we add to the economy as Nigerians when you give me the chance.
Yeah, I'm sure that'll be employment mostly. Employment.
Reduction of the
pressure on FX.
Reduction of pressure on FX, you know, and you're looking at it as an economist, well, as a consumer only. But when you look at it as an economist and as an engineer, there's significant backward integration. Backward integration in that our members are big enough now, they are manufacturing meter boxes, trunking, and we're buying cables from the likes of Coleman. I see their adverts, so that's very
so
I don't forget. From Coleman, and we're buying substantial volumes from these people. Now, when you bring the guys from overseas, they're just going to bring all of everything from the wherever they're bringing it in and dump it here. But we
creating employment for their own economy.
Yes, and we would also be training, because there is NAPTIM. It's training, the Presidential Metering Initiative is also training 4,000 installers in addition to the maybe like 20,000 installers that we currently employ now. So you can see the multiplier effects in the economy.
So there was an announcement about updated meters and deadline and all of that. And then, you know, at some point they said some meters had stopped working. What's the status of that now?
That's an ongoing process.
But there's no deadline anymore, because I know the deadline expired, was it last year?
No, there is no strict deadline. Ideally, the discos would like that deadline implemented. However, there are systemic issues that make it very difficult. You know, how do you get a customer of mine in Oyo or Shaki to improve or get the codes to update his meter? What if his meter is an obsolete meter? But anyway, this was required of a certain type of meters manufactured at a certain time. But
is it a band A consumer?
No, nothing to do with the band A now. It's to do with the year of manufacture and whether they are STS encrypted meters or not. So because of encryption and progress made in the technology, those meters were manufactured and designed to be able to upgrade. So you just need to upgrade so that the meters can perform more functions, more accuracy, and more communication, which is the basis of smartness anyway. So that is what this
so it's
upgrade
still ongoing.
It's still
but
ongoing.
It's just, there's no strict deadline to it. It's like an ongoing process.
It's an ongoing process. Like I said, we would all like there to be a deadline. However, like I said, the reality is that you must make allowance for people. So what the discos have done is, rather they have automated the process. You just go to their website, download what you need to download, input it into the meter, and the meter will automatically upgrade.
But this is when you're using a prepaid meter. Those using postpaid, I don't think they're anywhere close to this issue of updating.
Some of those using postpaid are also doing that. I think what you might be looking at are those using maybe the obsolete meters that need replacement. It's a different thing if you need replacement, so that your meters can offer current day facilities, you know, so that you can remotely charge or credit your meter and things like that. But otherwise, you know, let's just say it's an ongoing process, and it's been simplified, but to the extent that now you just go onto the website, download the necessary tokens, put it in your meter, and the meter responds.
Okay, we're almost out of time, but the issue of penalty for meter bypass, it's not supposed to be a new thing, but power theft is still a major one, and it's because of things like this. How effective is this threat of strict or stiff penalty for meter bypass?
Let me say that the regulator has worked very hard on that. There was a lot of resistance from even the most unexpected quarters, but the regulator has now very recently come up with a new set of penalties for meter bypass, which I guess is why it's part of your talking points. And what they've done now is that they have they have tried to identify all the possible meter bypass and abuse, and to attach specific identifiable penalties to them. Before, it was a crime, but there was no penalty. You would have to go to court, and it depends on how what the outcome of the court process is. But now, you may even still need to go to court. However, there are specific penalties for specific activities.
Yeah, but you know, Engineer, I wonder if this will apply when government agencies and arms are involved, because we do know that MDAs are owing. Ikeja is there, the big one that happened last week or so. The MDAs are owing a whole lot, and it does seem like electricity distributors have their arms tied, because it's the government that is supposed to protect them that's actually doing this.
Yes, it is the government that
I noticed the volume of your voice reduced.
Well, it's quite sensitive, if you agree with me. It's quite sensitive. The government wants the distribution companies to increase their CAPEX, capital expenditure. How do you increase your capital expenditure when your biggest customers are probably owing 10 years ago, an accumulated debt? So, the case of what happened in Ikeja Disco, for instance, I think has to be handled at the highest level. You cannot play around with the Air Force. You cannot play. They are very key to security. But then also, this is a democratic government. Even in a military government, we wouldn't expect them to do that. So I expect the government to step in at the highest level, because Ikeja Disco is doing well. But if they had this kind of money, for instance, they said 4.3 billion naira, they could buy a few more meters from me, and also they could buy a few more transformers to reduce the ATC and C.
And then you could employ more people.
I could employ more
and then
people.
That would be more revenue for the economy.
And the energy provision will be more reliable and stable.
All right, Engineer, we really have to stop here. The Engineer Durosola Omogbenigun is the Chief Executive Officer of INRELI Limited, and also the Acting President, Association of Meter Manufacturers of Nigeria. Thank you so much. And this is obviously a continuous conversation. We hope to have you soon again.
We'll be happy to come back, especially later in the year, to say PMI has bought meters from us.
All right, thank you so much.
Thank you very much.
Let's take a break now. When we come back, Willie Bong is waiting with global news right there in the studio. Stay with us.
This morning, global news.
Still Business Morning on Channels Television. Let's get some global news now with Will Ibong, who's not here at the NGX studio, but right there in the studio. Hey, Will, over to you.
Good morning, Ini. It's good to be here talking to you at the NGX. Let's get straight to the news this morning. Ferrari CEO Benedetto Vigna says the company is ready for possible U.S. tariffs on European automakers, but did not reveal details. He noted that they are closely watching developments. While a 25% tariff could disrupt supply chains, analysts say Ferrari may be less affected due to its luxury pricing. Meanwhile, tariffs under the USMCA have been paused until April the 2nd. Now, despite trade concerns, Ferrari's profits are rising, and it remains on track to unveil its first fully electric car on October 9 in Italy. Its stock is up 0.5% this year. Now, veteran diplomat Kishewe Mabubani says President Donald Trump could negotiate a major trade deal with China if Beijing is assured that the U.S. won't push for Taiwan's independence. He believes a win-win deal is possible if China opens its market, accepts more U.S. exports, and invests in America. Also, ex-U.S. Ambassador David Adelman adds that China has a strong stake in the U.S. economic success. With Chinese consumers becoming wealthier, both experts see potential for deeper economic ties despite ongoing tensions between the two global powers. Now we go now to Germany. Bundesbank President Joachim Nagel warns that U.S. tariffs could push Germany into recession this year, calling a trade war harmful to all sides. Nagel says that while Europe was right to respond, tariffs could have severe economic consequences if fully implemented. He hopes that the Trump administration realizes that Americans will also bear a high economic cost from the trade dispute. Now, still in Germany, Germany's parliament will debate a 500 billion euro infrastructure and defense fund on Thursday, aiming to pass it before a new legislature convenes on March the 25th. Conservative leader Friedrich Merz is pushing for swift approval to avoid opposition from far-right and far-left lawmakers. The plan needs Green Party support to secure a two-thirds majority, but faces potential legal challenges. With concerns over U.S. disengagement from Europe, the proposal has unsettled markets, boosting the euro. A final vote is expected next Thursday. Now, see, Intel has appointed Lip Bhutan as CEO, replacing interim leaders after Pat Gelsinger's exit. The chipmaker's stock jumped 12% on the news. Tan, former CEO of Cadence Design Systems and an ex-Intel board member, aims to revive Intel by strengthening its strengths, disrupting weak areas, and accelerating lagging progress. Intel has struggled with declining sales and AI competition, leading investors to push for cutting costs and potential spin-offs. Tan is Intel's fourth CEO in 7 years. Now let's take a trip now to Barbados, where the 2025 Sustainable Energy for All, C4All Global Forum is taking place. The pivotal event, which commenced on Wednesday, March the 12th in Bridgetown, Barbados, is focusing on sustainable energy for equity, security, and prosperity. Joining us from Barbados to discuss happenings there is our London correspondent, Juliana Olainka. Good morning, Juliana. First of all, I want to say thank you for joining us. It's past 5 a.m. in Barbados, still snooze time, and you're here with us discussing this. But let's look at Barbados now as co-host for the Sustainable Energy. It's very apt that they appropriate being a country that is aiming to become the world's first 100 renewable and carbon neutral island state by 2030. Tell us, Juliana, what makes this year's forum different from any of the past years?
Good morning. Well, as you said, from Barbados, unfortunately, it's not as sunny and as colourful as you're making it out to be. As you quite rightly said, it's just past 5 a.m. But a really important gathering of world leaders. I suppose this event, hosted, as you quite rightly said, by Sustainable Energy for All, which is an independent organization, but is very closely aligned with the United Nations. In fact, it was set up a few years ago by the then UN Secretary General Ban Ki-moon. It's currently run by Damilola Ogunbiyi, who is a Nigerian lady, pretty much a trailblazer on the global energy scene. She was once the DG of the Nigerian Rural Electrification Agency. So she has a lot of legwork within this sector. And it's a follow-up from the Energy Summit, which was held in Tanzania just a couple of weeks ago, and that was attended by President Bola Ahmed Tinubu. I think, you know, African nations, particularly the Caribbean, of course, are aware of the detrimental effects of burning fossil fuels, and this particular region is so heavily dependent on importing fossil fuels for their energy. And so that is really why the setting is so appropriate. And we had Mia Mottley, the Bayesian Prime Minister, giving a rousing keynote speech yesterday, as she always does. I think all of our viewers are familiar with Mia Mottley, who has emerged as kind of one of the most vocal female leaders of this age. And I think now the Caribbean are trying to, I would say, walk a very delicate tightrope of embracing renewable energy, but then also maximizing the opportunities from fossil fuels. I don't know if it was reported on this show yesterday, Will, but we did hear the announcement about Oando becoming the preferred bidder of a Trinidad and Tobago refining piece of infrastructure, which is pretty big. And I think now Africa is embracing the Caribbean much more than before. And then, of course, this summit today comes just a couple of months after Afreximbank hosted their annual general meeting in the Bahamas. So it does appear as if Africa and the Caribbean are coming together at a time where, as you know, all of the global discourse is being pushed to the global north and about trade wars. It's very important that Africa is able to not isolate itself, but I think propel itself, shape its own narrative, but then also be at the seat of these big discussions.
Okay, so talking about big discussions, what specific commitments or partnerships, I know it started yesterday, are anticipated to emerge from this forum, especially to advance global energy access and climate goals? What have you heard so far?
Well, so yesterday it was really big news for the local Bajans, because Mia Mottley, the Prime Minister, launched the Energy Transition and Investment Plan. And this is very similar to Nigeria's Energy Transition Plan, which was designed by Sustainable Energy for All under the tenure of President Muhammadu Buhari. In fact, former Vice President Yemi Osinbajo is here in Bridgetown. He delivered a keynote speech yesterday. So really what the solution is to accelerate progress on the energy transition. I think it's good to, step back a little bit. And it does feel, Will, I'm sure you've been to a lot of these conferences, that sometimes it's just a lot of talk, a lot of great pictures, a lot of strong networking. I think the world has moved beyond that. And I think, events such as these, they need to be very careful to make sure that they're checking in on the temperature of the day. I think it's quite noticeable that there isn't much of an American presence here. And I think because of the proximity of the Caribbean to America, you've got to have the big American names in the room. But with the cutting off of US aid and the isolationist, protectionist policies of Donald Trump, it almost appears as if events like this are going lower down on the agenda, which is why I think a lot of Caribbean countries are being quite careful not to just jump into the renewable energy pool, but are also exploring oil and gas, because our nations so heavily depend on that revenue, Will.
Well, definitely, you see, the fossil fuel is still here to stay, despite the energy transition that we have been hearing, that they've been talking about. Specifically, we know that, from what I've heard, most leaders are there to tackle or challenge the approach to which, this sustainable energy transition, is being handled. But what is being said, especially with leaders, industry leaders being there, what are they saying about investment in clean energy, particularly in low and middle income countries, those where we have energy poverty, where it's most severe? You talked about the US, snubbing this meeting, but what is being said about how are leaders coming together to ensure that these communities in Africa are energy secure?
Well, I think the major takeaways are that small island developing states developing nations really have to mobilize finance. I think that's the major thing. I think, it will be a successful meeting for any nation if they are able to go away with funds that are going to help then scale some of these solutions to ensure that sustainable energy is equitable, it's gender friendly, and it also involves the youth. So much later today, there is going to be an awards giving out accolades to youth on the continent of Africa who are doing their very best to make sure they're providing clean energy solutions. Of course, the major discussions are not going to take place on the big stage. Most of the discussions here are high level, but really it's building up on the Mission 300 initiative. Again, that goes back to when we had the Global Energy Summit in Dar es Salaam, Tanzania, a couple of weeks ago. The Mission 300 initiative is a joint venture by the Rockefeller Foundation, the African Development Bank, the World Bank, as well as the Nigerian government, to ensure that 300 million Africans have access to clean energy by 2030. So again, a lot of, buzzwords, a lot of technical speech, which those who work within the UN do so well. So on the surface, it looks great. It's a great initiative. You've got good, strong leaders here. But is it going to trickle down, Will? That's the thing, is it going to trickle down? Are we actually going to move along from just constantly repeating the same sentences? That's what I hope. That's what I hope.
We do hope that this trickles down, it's all, like you said, it's all talk. Maybe let's see more work. Thank you so much, Juliana, for joining us from Bridgetown, Barbados, for sharing your thoughts on Business Morning. Thank you.
Thank you, Will.
So now we head over to Ini. Back to Ini at the NGX for more on Business Morning.
Well, thank you so much, Will. I can see you yourself and Juliana having some fun right there from the global space, and Juliana all the way from Barbados. I hope she'll bring some things for us. But anyway, just before we go on the program, let's tell you how the market closed yesterday. The NGX, the stock market report is back in the red zone yesterday. The market lost about 48 billion naira at 106,090.38. Equities cap is still hanging to the 66 trillion naira level. Activity was mostly green yesterday, but we had deals in the red at 11,748. Top gainers led by tantalizers. Well, out of nowhere, you see, investors just picked up. But a major market mover yesterday came from the oil and gas counter. Conor yesterday lost 10% and closed at 331 naira 20 kobo. So we hope that by intraday, perhaps there'll be a bit of recovery, but it doesn't seem like we would have that. Will Ibon will have that details for you. Laditu will be back for Business Incorporated at 1 p.m. to give you updated from the world of business. I'm Ini John Mekwa. Well, today was from the NGX. Tomorrow, I'll see you from the studio. But first, tonight, I'll see you for the News at 10 stock market report. Join me then. Bye-bye.